Welcome to Learning Forward with Harish, Season 13, Episode 2. I'm Anvesha, your podcast host at Learning Forward. Harish Bhat, currently the brand custodian at Tata Sons, has held many roles in the Tata Group over the past 34 years, including as the managing director of Tata Global Beverages and chief operating officer of Titan's watches and jewellery businesses. Harish is an alumnus of BITS Pilani and the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. An avid marketer, he has helped create many successful Tata brands. He writes extensively and is a columnist for the Hindu Business Line and Mint. He's also the author of Tatastories, 40 Timeless Tales to Inspire You. Tata Stories is a collection of little known tales of individuals, events, and places from the Tata Group that have shaped the India we live in today. We welcome you, sir. So, sir, if you could speak a few words about your life and your book. So, where did it all begin?
Thank you, Anvesha. It is my pleasure and privilege to participate in this conversation with you. Thank you very much for hosting this podcast at Learning Forward today. It's a great pleasure being part of the My Good Schools initiative. And I really appreciate the fact that my book, #Tatastories, is a focus book for My Good Schools this month. Let me tell you a little bit about my life, Anvesha. Most of my school studies were done in the state of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. I was in places like Coimbatore, Salem, Madurai, and Kollam through my schooling. For a brief while in Bombay as well. And thereafter, I went to BITS Pilani for my undergraduate education in engineering. And then I did an MBA from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. After that, for the past 36 years, I've been working with the Tata Group. The Tata Group selected me on campus as a young officer in the group at the age of 24 years. And for the last 36 years, I've been happily part of the Tata Group in many interesting roles. I love marketing. I love the process of branding, marketing, and consumer insight. Professionally, over these 3 decades and more, marketing has been the mainstay of my career. But alongside my marketing, I also love writing. I'm very, very passionate about writing. I have written 5 books that have been published so far. #Tatastories is one of those 5 books. I love the written word, and writing gives me a great deal of satisfaction. So marketing and writing are my 2 big passions professionally. I'm married. My wife, Veena, is a data scientist. And we have a daughter, Gayatri, who has completed her postgraduate studies and has now embarked on her own professional career. A couple of things about me which I think your colleagues and you may like to know. I love food. I love eating. Okay, I'm sure many of you do as well. I love keeping fit physically. Making sure that I walk adequately or sometimes go to the gym, but making sure that I keep fit physically. So that's about me as a person. My book, Tatastories, where did it all begin? It began during the pandemic, Anvesha. You remember the pandemic, when all of us were at home for nearly 2 years. We could not go out. And in March 2020, I remember the pandemic hitting all of us in Bombay as well. I'm sure it has hit all of you in your respective locations. And if you remember, the first few weeks of the pandemic were chaotic. We did not know what was happening. Many of us could not go to our offices. Many of you could not go to your schools. And generally speaking, the mood was a little low. So I said, why don't I write stories which are inspiring? Stories from the group where I've worked for the past 30 odd years. Stories which can inspire you, which can motivate you. I said, let me try my hand at writing these stories. So I wrote these stories and posted them on LinkedIn, which is, as you know, a social media platform, where they got huge response from readers. Readers loved the stories. They said, listen, this is very inspiring to me. This is helping me do new things in my life. A young woman professional even wrote and told me, these stories are so good that I read them out to my young child before putting her to bed at night. So that encouraged me to write many more of these stories. And eventually I wrote 40 of these stories, all drawn from the history of the Tata Group. And these stories then got compiled into the book #Tatastories. So I would write a story, and then on my evening walk with my wife, we would discuss the story. I would come back and fine tune it and put it into good shape. I would check all the facts with the head of the Tata Central Archives, a gentleman called Rajendra Prasad Narla. Then I would finalize the story. That was the process I followed. But essentially, the reason I have written these stories, Anvesha, is to inspire people, with stories of the dreams, of the ambitions, of the lives of some of the most iconic business leaders of the Tata Group. So these are stories that will not just inform you, not just inspire you, but they're stories which can even provoke you to do much more with your own life. So that's the background, Anvesha. That's a little bit about my life and the book Tata Stories.
Yes, sir. And we read your book at my good school, and we found that one of the most profound lines was the quote by Jamsetji Tata, which said that the community is not just another stakeholder in business, but it is the very purpose of its existence. So, sir, for an enterprise, how does one manage to keep the community at the center while sidelining certain profits and other benefits?
So Anvesha, let me say that profit and purpose can go hand in hand with each other. One doesn't have to be sidelined for the sake of the other. The Tata Group is a very successful and profitable enterprise, yet at the same time, the community is center stage in the group. Let me go back to the days of our founder, Jamsetji Tata, whose quote you have mentioned. The first greenfield enterprise that he started was a textile mill called the Empress Mills. It was located in Nagpur. Now, the Empress Mills was one of the most profitable units of its time. Why? Because Jamsetji Tata used the best quality of cotton, long stapled cotton. Why? Because he also ensured that he used manufacturing innovations like the ring spindle, which improved the productivity of the mill. But at the same time, he also ensured that in these mills in the 1870s and 1880s, he introduced concepts like an accident insurance program for his workers, a pension fund for workers who have completed a certain duration of working in the mills. In 1901, he introduced the concept of a provident fund. Some years later at Empress Mills, they introduced a creche for the children of working women. He had evening classes to educate his workers. He had a pictograph to show them, the old style of movies and entertain them. And people asked him, why are you doing all this? Why are you spending so much money on welfare? And Jamsetji Tata said, we don't consider ourselves to be more philanthropic than others. We run our business on straightforward principles. He said, we owe a return to our shareholders and the best return to our shareholders. But at the same time, we think the welfare of our people is the foundation of our future prosperity. That was his philosophy. And many years later, his sons and he transferred their wealth to the Tata Charitable Trust, which until today owns 66% of Tata Sons, the parent company of the Tata Group. What does this mean? This means that the Tata Group is owned, the majority owner of the holding company of the Tata Group are the Tata Charitable Trusts. And these trusts contribute to the creation of hospitals in India, to the creation of educational institutions in India, to the National Water Program, and to many, many other initiatives for the community. While at the same time, our companies which manufacture and market products like Tata Cars, Tata Trucks, Tata Salt, Tata Tea, Titan Watches, Tanishq Jewellery, Voltas Air Conditioners. These companies are very, very good at the quality of products that they make, the quality of services they provide, and therefore they're also very profitable companies, very successful companies in their own right. So while we are owned by while the Tata Group is owned by charitable trusts, the Tata Trusts, at the same time the group comprises of many companies which do cutting edge work, which produce wonderful products and services, earn the trust of consumers, and also earn very good profits. So it is possible for profits and purpose to go hand in hand, and the Tata Group is an illustration of that, Anvesha. That's why I think community being center stage is very important to us. At the same time, being a very successful enterprise is also important to us.
Absolutely, sir. So, like you mentioned this, and in your another book, Tatalog, it is particularly emphasized that the DNA of every Tata enterprise is a combination of being pioneering, purposive, principled, and not perfect. What does that mean for a company?
Yeah, so what it means for a company, Anvesha, you're quite right. In my book Tatalog, I have mentioned the Tata Group as being pioneering, purposive, principled, and not perfect. What it means is that, what does pioneering mean? Pioneering means going where no one has gone before, creating new products, creating new services which serve consumer needs. Okay, when the Tata Group created Tata Salt, an iodized salt for the whole country, that was a pioneering move. When the Tata Group built India's first integrated steel plant so that India could depend on its own steel, that was a pioneering move. And why is pioneering important? Because pioneering ensures that we are relevant to every generation. Pioneering also ensures that we invest in industries which are very important to our nation. Pioneering ensures that our companies are constantly cutting edge. Now, purposive is about contributing to the nation, is about having a larger purpose, like I've already described, keeping the community in the center stage. And all companies of the Tata Group try their best to do that, try their best to ensure that there's a purpose built into their business. It could be nurturing of the community around, like Tata Steel has done in Jamshedpur, or Tata Chemicals has done in Mithapur and Okhamandal. Or purposive could be building purpose into the value chain of the company, like how Tanishq encourages jewellery artisans and creates Karigar parks for them. Or purposive could be through, community spends, returning resources back to the community. Principled, Anvesha, is about doing business in the right way, doing business in a manner which is fair and ethical. And that's something that we take great pride in the Tata Group. We have a Tata Code of Conduct that all of us sign up to, and we believe that we have to conduct our business in line with those principles. The fourth P that I have mentioned, not perfect, is particularly important because at the end of the day, the Tata Group or any other organization in this world is a collection of human beings. And when you have human beings, there can be errors. Human beings are not perfect. Each of us can slip up or make mistakes. And we recognize that the Tata Group is also not perfect. And therefore, when we make errors, we should respond in a manner that is good, in a manner that ensures that those errors don't happen again, and in a manner that reveals the character of the Tata Group. So that is what I mean when I say that the Tata Group is pioneering, purposive, principled, and not perfect. These are four characteristics of the group. And these four characteristics taken together, you get a good idea of what kind of a group we are.
Absolutely, sir. Now, moving on to Tatastories, while reading the book, there is a mutual feeling that we are not a participant, but we are a participant and not just a mere observer. So, sir, how did you manage that charm to make the reader's experience being in the same boat as the author?
Thank you very much for mentioning that, Anvesha. Good storytelling is about making the reader or the viewer feel part of the story. When a reader or a viewer feels part of the story, then I think they immerse themselves in the story. That's why when you watch a wonderful movie, which makes you part of the storytelling, or read a beautiful book, you feel integral to that experience, and you can virtually imagine what is happening in that story. You can virtually picturize how the story is coming to life. What I do is follow some very simple principles of storytelling to make that happen. First and foremost, Anvesha, a story has to be told in very simple language. According to me, the more simple a story is, the more engaging it will be. The more simply it's told, the more engaging it will be. Second, a story has to be told in a manner that makes it exciting and interesting. Only then will it hold the reader's attention throughout. Third, a story needs to have emotion in it, Anvesha, because the best stories speak to your heart and to your mind, and not only to your mind. So a story needs to have all the emotions, the positive emotions, the emotions of a struggle, the emotions of achievement, the emotions of success or failure. All those emotions need to be expressed through a story. And of course, a story should have a protagonist, a hero or a heroine, who actually carries the story. So these are some simple principles I have kept in mind while writing these stories. I think all of you listening to this conversation, all of you are storytellers. I come across many school students today who tell stories so beautifully. And that's something, Anvesha, that we should always carry with us throughout our lives. Stories are some of the most beautiful part of our lives. I'm sure all of us remember the stories that our grandmothers told us, or our mothers told us, or our fathers told us. We remember the stories which have come down India over so many generations, whether it's the Ramayana or the Mahabharata or any other stories of our country. Storytelling is an integral part of our lives, and I would urge all of you, to keep nurturing the art of storytelling in your own lives.
Absolutely, sir. So, Tata Stories is a beautiful collection of tales penned down wonderfully. But there must have been more stories to tell, like there are always. So, sir, any specific account which you wished to write about but you couldn't?
Yeah, that's a very nice question, Anvesha. Thank you very much for asking that question. Yes, there were other stories that I wanted to write, but I could not. I had to stop this book at 40 stories. For instance, one of the stories I wanted to write about was the story of Tata Salt. Tata Salt is one of the most trusted brands of India. Okay, more than 700 million people across India use Tata Salt in their homes. I'd like to ask all of you, how many of you use Tata Salt in your homes? Now, the reason that Tata Salt is used is because it is such a trusted brand. It provides consumers a very consistent product. Hygienic, well-packed, free-flowing, free of all impurities. It is also iodized. It was the first major brand of salt in India to be iodized, and it carries iodine to every Indian home and every Indian person, because iodine is very important for the functioning of our bodies, and many Indians were iodine deficient before the introduction of iodized salts. But how did Tata Salt happen? How did this idea come to Tata Chemicals at that stage? How was it manufactured? How was it produced and sold? There is a beautiful story sitting there. If you go to Mithapur in Gujarat, you'll see the wide salt pans where salt is actually made. It's vacuum evaporated and then packed. You'll see these salt pans also being home to many beautiful migratory birds, which I have seen there. It's a beautiful sight. So I wish I had been able to write that story as well, but who knows, maybe in the future I will still write it, Anvesha. But thank you for asking me that question.
Thank you so much, sir. It was great pleasure to have you here, sir. And dancing across this long arc of time are thousands of beautiful, astonishing Tata stories, many of which can inspire and provoke us, even move us to meaningful action in our own lives. These stories bring to vivid life the extraordinary longevity, vibrancy, and success of Tata. But at their essence, they are simple, moving stories of great teams, men and women, which hold profound lessons for all of us. And with that, we come to the end of our podcast. Comment below and let us know if you liked our podcast. If you want to be a part of similar podcasts, join us. We hope to meet you soon again.
Thank you, Anvesha. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
We are here at my good school. Things here are so cool. Together we learn, together we create, together we meditate. Everyone is welcome. Teachers here are awesome. We learn good values, we learn many skills. We soar above the hills. Let's shout it out, hey, let's all be proud, hey, hats off to my good school. Just what we need, hey, for us to succeed, hey, are all here in my good school.